I've been there 8 years, but I'm kind of paid my way. So my job, my specific duties there is to help schools and school gardens. And I think that's why I'm pretty knowledgeable on this topic, because if you think about the school year, most of it is in the time of growing, you need a little bit of support. So the months from June to August, when everything's flourishing, the kids aren't just there. So I work with schools on this topic of season extension and how to make as much as you can grow throughout the year. So before I start, so we're going to be talking about winter gardening, I do just want to kind of get a sense of you all. How many of you are interested in winter gardening for vegetables? Okay. How about for herbs? And what if anybody who's just main interest is just like flowers? Okay.
How about trees?
Trees. I've been to a ton of trees, but how many are interested in trees? Okay. We talk about that, like pruning and care of trees. Okay. Talk a little bit about that. That, is so interesting. The whole pruning and care of trees is like a whole topic in itself. And so it's a little, we'll touch on it, but it's a whole big topic. Okay, so let's talk about winter gardening, which also you'll hear in the horticultural world, you'll hear called season extension, because we're just trying to extend the growing capabilities. Why are we trying to do that? Because our average growing season in Albuquerque, most of you I'm assuming are from this general area, these are our average growing days. And so you'll see that it really actually depends very much on where you are, from Albuquerque Central to Moriarty. They don't bolt the same way in the fall. So those ones are a lot better to grow in the fall. And really starting from in July, August, I even know farmers here who grow cabbage really well. I am not successful with cabbage, but you start it in July, get it going into the fall. And then different onions will do better with freeze and frost, but walnut onions are doing really well. Garlic is excellent. I like so honey. Put it in the ground and it grows all winter and harvest it in June. Kind of it with garlic. I'm not a slide of garlic. Here's some of my favorites, the otter vegetables, or otter greens. I like chicory and marigin thyme. Chicory is quite a big thing, but chicory does really well with the cold. And sorrel. Anybody for sorrel? Sorrel is a lovely green. It's very lemony and tangy, but it makes a beautiful soup, especially combo bacon on top. It's a really fun green. You just can put it in salads too, because it has this real lemony and tangy flavor. Can anybody think of anything else we grow in the winter that's I don't have in there? Obviously, I left on lettuce. Okay. So one thing about the root crops is that when it gets really cold, close enough is January, but when it gets really cold, December through February, March maybe, those root crops up there, these ones up here, they will really slow down. So what happens with carrots is if you put them in the fall, or put them in, say, in August, September, and they'll grow, they may be harvestable, or they may just kind of sit there through the winter and then grow some more in spring. Sometimes they don't taste very good. Sometimes when they sit that long, sometimes they're great. And sometimes they come back and get kind of woody and strange. I really think that carrots can be a little bit picky. Beets not so much. Beets will do great. They'll just kind of sit there small and then spring will come and or warmer temperatures will come and they'll keep growing. I think there's a nice thing about radishes. They just goes away. Okay, so there's Stephanie Walker is a professor down at NMSU, and she put together this little chart. It's from this publication, Hoop House Vegetable Production, and then there's another chart. Are you guys going to copy this presentation, Sarah? Did you make a copy?
I can mail that presentation today.
Okay. Otherwise, look up Oregon State. They have this Oregon State and season extension. They have this great chart in this publication where they just talk about each one of a bunch of different crops and what is their lethal minimum temperature. I found very interesting. So that legal minimum temperature is where the plant just kind of can't take it anymore. And this is one of the reasons you're going to see spinach featured so much in crops that do well in winter, is that spinach really can tolerate very low temperatures. But you know, as you'll see here, these legal minimum temperatures, so these crops can really tolerate New Mexico. Perhaps what's harder on these crops is that we'll get a cold night, you'll get a 27-degree night, and then it'll go up to the 60s in the day. And those swings, those can be really stressful on crops. And in fact, some of them, like the cauliflower, the broccoli, the crops in the cole family, sometimes just those big swings will make them wilt. Stress, the plants respond to stress. And so a big temperature swing, plants can say, okay, I'm enough. I'm going to make flowers. Yeah.
Oregon State is a totally lower elevation than we are.
That is true, but this sort of legal temperature for plants is... So this actually, I'm sorry, this chart is from Stephanie Walker in New Mexico. This particular one. But Oregon State has a more expansive chart, but what's interesting is I looked at the temperatures in both of these charts and they're similar. It's just the temperature at which the plant can't tolerate it. So when we talk about season extension, one of the things I want you to think about if you're interested in vegetables is trying to reduce those temperature swings. So it being 25 degrees at night and going to 60 something in the day. That's so stressful on a plant. How can you get that swing to be less drastic? That'll make the plant, your vegetable taste better. It'll make it less likely to bolt. So garlic is one of these great winter plants that you could put in now and that you planted about now. Not too late, a lot of people say early October. Put it in, it likes to be in kind of rows, 2 inches apart, and you just harvest it in June. And by June, it'll start looking kind of like brown and falling over, and then it's ready to harvest. Actually, don't water it for a few weeks before you harvest it. That's important. Don't water it for a few weeks before you harvest it. But garlic doesn't like a lot of weeds, so you don't want to keep it weeded. And you want to water it, just keep it kind of, it doesn't like to be soggy, but a couple times a month. And it'll just go through the whole winter. My garlic, I often put leaves around it. I'm a big mulcher. It's just, I think of it as a blanket for the plants. So I like to put leaves around my garlic. It also suppresses weeds. I don't like there's a lot of weeds in the winter. Do you have questions about garlic? No? If you just want to put something in and not fuss over the winter, I highly recommend. You need to raise that in anything. Just put it in and you don't do anything.
There's no mulch there.
There is no mulch there. I would just say. We have a lot of herbs that can tolerate the cold. I'm actually continually surprised with cilantro. Cilantro actually really likes cool weather. I find it very peculiar that in our mind it's wrapped in salsa because cilantro in the middle of the summer bolts. It doesn't like warm winter. Cilantro does really well in the fall and the spring. If you like cilantro, it kind of has its capacity for freezing weather, but it can last a long time and then trees look at it. But pretty much all of these can do pretty good. And so what I can't promise you is, parsley, I haven't lived through the whole winter a lot of times. Yeah, all winter. And it even looks terrible when it's frozen and horrible and the sun comes out. Okay, yeah. Which amazes me, it's a Mediterranean plant. Lots of flowers that actually tolerate cold weather pretty well, and I would put the list and then off the list choose what actually grows here, because, there's always that thing like, no, those don't grow in Mexico, but calendula, pansies, sweet alyssum, snapdragons, geraniums, bachelor buttons, poppies, sweet peas, marigolds. My personal favorite is flax. Flax is a flower that, blue flax, is also a red one, it just starts blossoming really early in the spring, so it's a nice color. And a lot of these do really well in the fall. And then, of course, now we kind of put in your bulbs, if you're interested in bulbs. Calendula is such a nice, this one, anybody grow calendula? Yeah, it's so nice. You can just put it in oil, put it in olive oil, and put the olive oil in the sun and make a nice hand oil or something. You can put it in salads, you put it in teas. It's really good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about biology, what's happening here. Okay, so what happens when it freezes exactly? So injury happens when the internal plant temperature drops low enough inside that ice crystals form inside the plant. Cellular liquid freezes, forming crystals. These sharp objects in turn puncture the cell membranes. As the air and plant temperatures warm up, ice crystals liquefy, it leaks out of the cell and dehydrates them. That's what happens when your tomato plant looks like heck after the first frost. And so it literally just burst from the inside. And so this is from Colorado State. I actually looked at a lot of Colorado materials because we have some similarities with them. Unless there are plants that literally make antifreeze. These are the ones that are fascinating. Some plants produce natural antifreeze, like you use in your car, which lowers the freezing point of the liquid in their cells. Because how they do this is they actually detect the falling temperature. They ramp up the production of certain enzymes inside of their leaves that break down starches and mix those into sugars. Those sugars up the concentration of solids within their tissue and make it a lot harder for their tissues to freeze. And so do you know what those, and in that process, what does sugar taste like? Sweet. So it makes things sweeter. This is where carrots get sweeter after the first frost. This is where, in a lot of places, people say, we don't eat Brussels sprouts until the first frost because they get sweeter. So, what are those? Oh, you know what? I didn't put the list over there. Okay, what are they? Do you guys know what those ones are that make antifreeze? A lot of the root, the beets, the carrots, turnips, spinach, kale, chard, lettuce. All of the greens that you've noticed in your garden do really well, that's how they're doing it. And this is how kale can really survive in long winters. And chard, some of the greens don't do it as well, like bok choy to a point, and then some are hardier than others. But it's interesting, potatoes don't do it very well. They're not able to do this process. So you can always look up, Google which winter vegetables have antifreeze in them, and that's how we do it. And this is a kale here. Completely hardy. Oh, I also read that the kales that have red in them, some kales have like the Russian kales, they can do even better. Okay, so what else is happening when we get cold? So these low temperatures reduce the metabolism and growth. So your plants may grow slowly. That's why the carrots will start to grow really slow in winter. When the soil cools, the root crops, they're going to slow down until spring. And then the non-root crops, they're going to grow fine, like kale and lettuce and bok choy and collard greens and any greens that you want to put in, if the temperature is stabilized inside your season extension structure. We're going to talk about structures that you can put plants under to keep the temperatures from having those wild swings. But if you can keep the temperature from growing so rapidly swinging, that's what helps those plants grow better. I've had kale and chard that I leave outside uncovered, and it just doesn't get as big as the ones that I put under a cover because I'm really controlling the temperature and creating better conditions, basically. And then some crops, paradoxically, even the ones that can handle it, they respond to cold weather by bolting and creating flowers, especially if the cold is followed by a very hot day. Broccoli is just pretty nice to for this. I don't know why broccoli just throws it down and says, I'm done, if it's really cold and then really hot. So, and then, like I told you, crops are less likely to bolt in the fall than the spring. Less likely to get flowers. Oh, so this is what I recommend. This is my thermometer that I use for chicken or whatever. It's great for looking at the temperature of the soil. And so if you do some sort of covering of your soil, like I'll be showing you, go out in the middle of winter and stick that thing in the soil underneath your cover, and then go and stick it in the soil next to it that's not covered, and you'll see a big difference. I've done this many times. Sometimes, 10-degree difference in the soil might make a real difference. Okay, this is my exhausting slide. So these are the things that we want to think about with season extension. We want to think about our location, So in New Mexico, for passive warming in the winter months, anything like a hoop house, which we're going to talk about, so that the long side runs east-west. You want to get that winter sun coming in. If you're covering your bed, you want to get the winter sun coming in the most efficient way. Wide open exposures can experience colder temperatures when they're away from sidewalks and buildings. So one of the things I've noticed is that things that are close to the building or things that are kind of in a nook, they freeze a lot harder than things that they are protected better than things that are in a wide open space with the wind blowing. And then the southern exposure, the south side of your house is going to be the place you want to put any pots along, not the north side. We talked about the hills with the valley, why the valley gets cold air that sinks. We talked a little bit about temperature. We want to reduce those temperature swings. I thought this was really interesting, this low. Plants that grow close to the soil may survive freezing temperatures a bit longer than those due to warmth generated from the soil. So I think that's one of the reasons spinach does well. It has a lot of internal properties that do well, but it also stays really low to the ground. And they've actually shown that the temperature radiating from the soil goes up a few inches, and so anything like lettuce or spinach that's staying there can benefit from that. When soil is moist, it can hold 4 times as much heat as a dry soil. I always look at extension publications because they're science-based. I didn't read that 4 times, and it was only in one publication, but almost all publications said that moist soil holds more heat. And that's the same thing that's true for your trees and shrubs. I mean, they're not about the soil, but they also need to be watered. Trees and shrubs can handle the stress from a rapid temperature change better if their root systems have adequate water. This is one of the ways that drought stress really kills our plants. If you see drought stress, it's so if there's one nation disease. So this is what I did when I pulled off the election sign, and then I used the infrastructure, the wires, and then the frost came up over it, and it did great protecting my lettuce from some white frost. That won't do when we get the hard
You should give credit to the candidate.
So, if you have, it's really hard to cover a plant and not have the sheet touch the plant. So you need some sort of structure. But if you have a plant you're trying to protect, say you're trying to protect, I don't know what. Because tomatoes and squash and chilies, they're pretty sensitive. But maybe a chili, and you put a tomato cage over it and a blanket over it for a night that's just going to dip down and it might make it. Okay, when you really have to start thinking about covering, it's Halloween to Mother's Day, basically. That's what we say at work. That's when we can get frost. These are your fall freeze dates by year. Let's just take the South Valley. 1 year is the 13th, 26th, 11th, 4th. Okay, so you're on notice now. It's starting pretty soon, and it could be about a month swing. You could start as early as October 13th, and it could freeze as late as November 13th. So you could be kind of. Plants in general need, I would say it gets around 28 or so, and it's going to stay there. It's all about how cold it gets at night and how long it stays there. That's when you really start covering things. This is our spring information. Again, let's look at the South Valley. Our average is a break. But we say Mother's Day because you never know. Oh, okay. So how are we when these cold weather's coming, and I really think of it like December. December is when it can start getting really cold. You need to be ready to protect things. Late November, December, in a very serious way. So this is some chart I have, and this is a use of mulch. I will just pile around leaves all around the chart, and I've noticed it does really well for a long time. What you are reducing when you use mulch, though, is that if the soil is, you're keeping the soil warmer by putting mulch on it. Whatever warmth was in the soil, you're keeping it in. But if that soil is not able to radiate as much warmth up, right? You're sort of interrupting that ability of the soil to make the char warm, but you're keeping the roots warmer. I think it's something like it. Kale does this really well, and in fact, if it's going to be a really cold night, I just put the leaves all around the kale. all the way up maybe to the top. It works, I mean, and then the sun comes out and I'll kind of like want to go either way. It's just a really simple, easy way to do it.
How do you keep the ladies from going away? I don't know.
I don't know why people are always asking that. Because number one, I do all of my beds Sunday. I do all of my beds Sunday. I've already here so long, I don't really don't ever make a hill. Back of the, on the back of the times. So I put my beds are something about 4 inches. It's really efficient in watering. That helps a lot. A bit later. And it opens according to the ambient air temperature. That means you don't have to get open it. So if it gets warm, it just opens. If it gets cold, it just closes. That's worth the money, I have to say. Because one of the things I have to do so much is manage these. If I run off to work and forget, and it was cold that night, and then it's going to have one of those big temperature swings and go to warm, if it's 60 out, this can easily get 85 again. And what is the lettuce going to taste like at 85, 90? Bitter. If it gets too hot in whatever structure you use, your plants will create substances that make them more bitter. So you do have to open and close these a lot. It's a real commitment to seed extension. But inside I get beautiful lettuce. I mean, it's really worth it. Spinach is incredibly hardy.
What temperature do you try to stabilize it at?
What temperature do I try to stabilize it at?
Does this automatically know what temperature to open and close it? Or do you have to set it?
No, it automatically knows it. How does it? I used to have one that did it.
These are little solar things that you, with the left inside or something that pushes it at a certain temperature.
Yeah, and if you could find one that has a little temperature gauge you could set it at, that would be really great. But I would say if it got above, if it gets above 45 or 50, you should open it. Because that, I mean, I see, if it's sealed, we can have a good 20-degree difference. When our sun comes out, this is a hot box. It's a roasting box. So that's a good question on how those actually, what I found is it doesn't take much. If I'm running late and I just pop that open after, just pop it open and put a little log in there, even this much will save them for the day. It'll save them versus completely sealed. There's so many different kind of greenhouse products, and this is one of those hinges that works on a piston and rinse with heat. But what the temperature is, I don't exactly know. I have friends who got something like this. I don't endorse any products, but they found it really handy for their patio plants that they wanted to save. They in particular have some olive plants, some fig plants, and just different patio plants that they want to save. And they save them all winter, which is fine. And this is kind of house plants again. They do have to manage the temperature. If you have something like this, don't put it out in full sun. They have it on the patio. If you put this out in full sun and keep that shut, you're going to fry your plants again. It's the biggest problem we run into with greenhouses is too hot. We built this one. This is the one my husband built. I highly recommend polycarbonate. I'm going to show you that material in a minute. He built me this structure, and I just slide it open in a day. This is for me to do my greens, and I'll do lettuce in the front because it's shorter, and then my collard greens towards the back. I have it against a wall that gets a lot of sun first thing in the morning, so it's a really handy way to warm that box up. So the sun comes in the yard, it keeps that wall right away. And inside, this is last spring. And unfortunately, I didn't take a picture when it was flourishing with plants, but all the little babies came up really big. So this is polycarbonate. You'll see it has there's single wall or double wall polycarbonate. This is the material I love for building any structure for the winter because that double wall means it's insulating. And people build little boxes like this out of it. I thought this was fascinating. I showed my husband this the other night. He's like, that's amazing, we're going to do that. It's just a single wall polycarbonate, but kind of with boards, and then they just kind of build a tunnel out of it, a low tunnel. And in Mexico, that's probably enough to get you through a lot of nights on a really cold January. You might want to put something on the ends. Even leaves, pile it up there, but you put a board or a log or, I don't know, think of something like that.
just gave me an idea, you could go to the V-store and buy an old door with a window in it.
Yes, I have
And
some
pop
pictures of
that
those.
to save money.
Yep, a lot of people do some sort of structure with an old window or an old screen door, not with the screens, but the glass over it. There's some, the only downside of that is I had it one year, I've done it pretty much everything. I had straw bales, like 4 straw bales and a window over the top. The problem is the winter sun is like this. It doesn't get a lot of sun in there. That's why a lot of the winter structures have this angle. Because if you have high walls of any sort and then a window over the top, you're cutting down on a lot of winter sun. So make your walls short. You'll have to kind of play with it. This is something called a low tunnel. You buy these hoops, pound them into the ground, and then you just put this frost cloth or plastic over the top. It's what a lot of farmers do. It's, both Oregon State has some publications on it. West Virginia had a really good publication on how to build them. What you do if you do in New Mexico is that you get a lot of winds, so you have to kind of give some ways to put ropes over the top and stake those ropes down so that they don't block too much of the wind. This is, if you want to do road growing, this is really an economical way to do it. And then the dirt is a great way just to keep it down from the wind or logs. This is one that I do a lot with. This is my personal one, but I've done this a lot with schools. This is a really low cost, in the ground way of building a new house. That's plastic. This is, there's rebar. This is a rebar, 2 feet rebar that are pounded into the ground, just pieces of metal. And then this is PVC electrical conduit. And you go from one piece of rebar to the other piece of rebar. You go like this, stick it on the other one, and put your plastic over it. It does need to be clipped. Again, for wind, I'll show you some clip options. And then the biggest problem I've found is around the edges, right? Because that wind rips. So my husband, he's calling the crazy director, we've got nothing. He had these made for me. We fill them with dirt or sand, put a little tie at the end, and then they're heavy, they're like sandbags. And we put them, close the plastic and put it all along the side. And it really holds it shut for the wind to do so. But I also use logs, I use bricks, I use anything. There's also some versions. Okay, there it is, totally open. It's a really sunny day, I'll just completely open them. And then in deep winter, I wrote right here, in deep winter, you can just leave them closed. There are times where I don't open them at all for a week or 2 weeks. If it's a really cold couple of weeks, I just maybe a little corner, so I check the temperature in there, it seems to be getting too warm, I open a little corner, but in December and January, sometimes you can leave them closed. Now, if you don't want to fuss with all that, you can buy pre-purchased cover. You see this cover, it's nice. It has a zipped end. You might have to build the bed to the specifications. It comes with clips. It has a bar down the middle. That might be really worth it to buy something like that. Your cover options for any of these beds, here you'll notice that they put the plastic down to the end and probably stapled it in. Your cover options are plastic, which is really good for when it's really cold, like November through April. Again, opening and closing an end if you need to. And then cloth is really great for summer. I use these all summer with the cloth just to reduce the sun stress. And then they're really good on the tail ends of September, October, April, May. Any questions about those? They're very economical. Clips, I don't know, you can buy these online. They work really great. Coop House clips, you can Google. But I'm working in a school now where we use these. I took that picture at the school I'm at. Somebody uses clips like that. It doesn't really matter. It's just kind of regulation. Here's another pre-purchased option. This is the school I work at. We just have 7 of these put in. And at the end it has screen. They're working tremendously well. Those are our greens and I could just, if I wanted to go.
So cover the screen and the control cover?
So this particular option from Grow Your Own, I'm not promoting any product, but I do want to tell you where things have gone. Also has a winter cover that's plastic, so it has two covers. This is the cloth cover that I still have on now. It comes with another cover that's a plastic cover for winter. So this product comes in two different types of covers.
So is it better to put the plastic all the way down to the bottom of the boat?
Oh, like down here.
Like for the winter?
So you're noticing something really smart, which is the higher your raised bed is, the more likely the wind is going to pound against their inner soil and it's going to get cold. Yeah. These are new. I'll be curious to see how they go all winter. I think they'll be okay because what I noticed is that when you keep these closed, this whole mass is really warm in there. You know, just our nights, we're not in Nebraska, right? Most of our days get sunny, and these are concrete here, and it heats up, and the wood kind of heats up with the sun on it. I don't think it would work in Nebraska. It would just get too cold. These are also really expensive. And so the version I was showing you before that I did, you can see it's just in the ground. Which eliminates what you're talking about in that the side structure is not going to get really cold. I've done so many different things. This is our current one. This is remesh. You see this? So this is a giant piece of remesh. It's flat when you buy it, and my husband bends it. It's the remesh, it's flat, and he bends it on two sides, and he makes me a little hoop. The reason I like this, that's my current picture we took yesterday. The reason I like this is that the whole top is remeshed, so I never get much sagging. It's just really easy to manage with the wind. And I can put bricks along the top if it's a really windy day. Maybe we put a board on top. And I can open and close it. It just has like a really nice structure. The biggest downside of this is that it's really hard to pick through there and kind of plant. It's annoying, right? There's not really an opening on the end, but otherwise you're reaching through the squares. So on the other side of this, you cut me some big openings and I can access the plants. That's my new favorite. You can see how it's just bent at the top, and then you cut it in a way that those forks just stick in the ground. Any question about that? No?
What's remesh?
Remesh is this material, this 4x4 square metal material. It comes in sheets. It's called remesh. You can buy it at one of our places.
And it's an open grate?
Yeah, it's just one big sheet, and then you can bend it how you like. I mean, that takes a little bit of skill and effort, but we bent it with it's not like this. We really bent the metal there at the top.
How high do you go? How high is that? What's the height?
This is about this tall.
Oh, okay.
Now, if your conditions are good inside of there, kale and chard can get really tall in the winter, and that's what I found with some of my, I'll show you my lower boxes I have out of polycarbonate. The downside of them is that the kale and chard are outgrowing them. So the hoop houses with the hoops or this are better for them to get tall. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything I didn't cover here. One thing, so these are some of the considerations about hoop houses is that, and we talked about having to really keep an eye on the temperature, but I'd say bugs is an issue because when it gets cold outside, guess where they take refuge? In a nice little environment you created. And so all greenhouses are known for being kind of refuges for bugs, so that can be an issue. But also, it's not that big of a space, you can usually find them and deal with it. Ensuring that the cover stays on is the biggest issue. But let's also talk about what kind of plastic you might put over the top. There's a lot of different kinds of plastic, and there are different thicknesses. So you don't have to worry about that. There's 3 millimeters, 6 millimeters, 9 millimeters. You're going to go buy plastic, and somebody might ask you this, and what you're going to say is 6. I want a 6. I talked to my friends at Silver Lake, they're farmers here in town. They said the 6 is really great. And then they said it's important to get actual greenhouse plastic because it's UV treated so it doesn't break down. You're going to find that plastic is a real problem. If you don't get UV treated plastic, it just breaks down so quickly here. And so you're going to be putting plastic in the landfill unless you buy a concrete plastic to begin with. But if you have some plastic on hand, I have used a ton of different kinds of plastic. But if you really want it to last, that's what you're going to buy. In terms of fabrics, they come in medium weight and heavy weight, and what is interesting about this is the light transmission. So the medium weight lets 85% of the light through, and the heavy weight doesn't let as much light through. I would say you really, because the plants in there really need the light, you should really go with the medium weight fabric. There's lots of creative options. And I would say if you're into flowers or even pots that you want to protect, something like this, if you wanted to build it, it would be great to keep, the pots inside of. This is the polycarbonate material, that double wall. Really probably the most efficient I've found for winter. I like this kind of design. I've had a few schools with this where the whole thing opens. That's really, it's really nice on your back. Just kind of open it, do your work, close it. And if you want to just pop it open for the day, they usually have a way to put a little piece of board in there to just keep it propped open a little bit, or a few stones a long way, and keep it open a little bit.
Is that polycarbonate hard to find?
No, hardware stores. And you can buy it sheets. I'm going to show you here in a minute what I did with sheets of it.
On your photos, you have soil around your structures. My yard was Xeriscape with gravel. Now, in the winter, that's an advantage because it'll keep it warmer.
Yeah.
If I just open up the soil inside. But I think in the summer, and I know it gets too hot.
Yes. So you're going to really want to do that cloth. So, but I've had some plants kind of sort of. Yeah. I usually cut it down into a few leaves and then pile this around it.
And that's usually which leaves also?
Well, so, yes and no. We have so many trees. We probably have 8 trees, so I don't think we can do it. But we're thinking of doing this. We have one on the north side of the house, and I'm really concerned about it. It's a new fig. I think for this winter we're going to build a polycarbonate box like this. This is exactly what my husband and I are doing, so it's kind of picture. That's perfect. And only because it's on the north side of the house, and somebody gave it to me, and it's from a long lineage of figs brought from Naples, and really people alive. My figs on the south side of the house tend to do fine. But if you have one fig and you love it, why not build a polycarbonate box around it?
But those are, so you put together an album for you, then they probably get out of these spots and stuff, right?
Those are these ones I definitely build a box, right? I find you can put hay, or straw, or leaves in there. So we were just in upstate New York with my husband's extended Italian family, and I found this really interesting. They kept talking about it. Do you remember your kids and the natives go out and do their figs? And so what they did was the figs are very pliable. They would take these and like pin them down to the ground, like kind of get them as. That's what they were saying. They would like tie them. They put ropes around them and tie them as close as they could get them. Like, stake them down to the ground and then cover them with leaves. And that's how they got the figs. So we were in upstate New York. So I guess you could also, you just don't want the root ball of your fig to die. You could also just build one of these type things around it.
So, well, I have a friend who has actually really rather large sort of low growth of big tree. Don't seem to go really large, but it goes all the way through. And it's really loaded with figs, but they say they lose them every year because they don't ripen before the frost. And they live in the valley like you do, so I was wondering, would you just be trying to cover it with frost cloth until it has a chance? Or
I haven't figured that. I have a hunch that there's some varieties because they're Mediterranean plant that were just used to more growing days. If they do it year after year, I don't think you're going to buy that many days by covering with frost cloth because if the fig starts to, as soon as it starts getting cold, the fig drops all its leaves. I don't know that they would ripen. They may or may not. After many years of it, you might just want to go find another fig. Because I've seen a few that do that, and then I have other figs in my yard that ripen right away, and we get a lot of them. I think they have a lower best growing day requirement. You also could just cut it way back, and then build a small box over it. You just don't want this part to easily freeze. Yeah? Chicago what? The Chicago harvest figs, yes. Hardened figs. Yeah, I actually just saw a blog post on those. You might want to Google that. But they were covered, yeah, you could, I think they were building a cage around it and putting straw in there. And if they're a more hardy variety, they're probably going to be fine. You can also do this if you're worried about losing your pomegranates. You can protect the base. There are some years where it gets so cold you lose your pomegranates. Tell us all about it.
I grow Celeste,
Celeste.
green Italian,
Celeste, green Italian,
and turkey.
and turkey.
North Texas turkey. They are grown on the south and west side of my house.
Yeah. Okay.
In the winter, when the leaves all fall, it's stuck on the branches. That's how it used to be.
Yeah, I don't do anything with most of my things either. I have one I'm really worried about, but it's a new one.
And
Yeah.
they all right in before the first frost.
Okay, so that was Celeste,
Celeste, green Italian,
green Italian,
and Texas turkey.
and then all right. But see, I think with
They're all
figs,
breaking me down.
yes, I think with figs it's all about finding a variety that likes it here. So, and if the great thing about figs is they're so easy to propagate, cut, water, well, let some roots come brown. So if you want a new fig from somebody, all of my figs in my yard from somebody, I like your fig. So maybe you need to, yeah. Few more ideas here. I don't care for, I don't think I want to look at this all winter, but boy, you could put bubble wrap around your plants. And look at that, a big chunk of plants. Amazing. But I do have a colleague at work, John, who recommends this. If you have a potted plant, say you bought some plant, you're not going to plant it, you can bury it in the ground. So you could put it like this, and then you could go and put the dirt all around it, or leaves all around it. But then the temperature of that pot is going to kind of level off the temperature of the surrounding soil instead of the air temperature. It's just, I saw a picture where they were taking pots of herbs and terracotta pots of herbs and burying them like that for them too.
Could you bring your pots into a garage, which is,
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're both dormant. You can bring them in the garage. I put a lot of my pots along the south side of my house.
You won't have light.
They won't have light, but if it's something that's kind of going dormant, I'm trying to think what it is.
geraniums, plants like that, like
I don't know if geraniums would live through the winter, but they do. What do I know?
In the garage, or they will, yeah.
Yes.
If they go dormant.
They go dormant. So there's a lot of plants that go dormant. My friends all think they're all in season. Do people put pomegranates in pots? And you do that pomegranate pot, you have a doll and put it on a dolly and put it in your garage? I'm not going to go over seed starting before you can spend all winter seed starting. What I would like to say about this is there's an optimum soil temperature for starting different plants. And this is why things like melons or cucumber, it's really good to start eggplant, or to start them early in the winter. They really need warm soil, and they're not going to have that for a long time. And so that's why these things do really well. Peppers, they do really well starting a couple of months early inside. The biggest thing about seed starting is things need proper light. They need proper light. Generally, a window is not enough. They need, grow lights. They need enough light, and that's if you really want to be successful. But spinach is perfectly happy with leftover soil. So, okay, here's something I want to show you in my recessed beds. I dig them all down. And then one thing I've done before is just use polycarbonate sheets. Then I go over the little baby plants and put a brick on top and like putting a little cover over them. It works great. There's some polycarbonate sheets. I was starting baby kale in there, and I grow everything in dug a trench, started the pail in the trench, put the polycarbonate over the top and the babies. I was just trying to get them going, and the babies did really well. Here they are, we're in the trench. And I'd open the top during the day, but it's just super low cost.
So we
Like if I haven't started seeds yet to over-winter and grow like this, is it too late to do that right now?
I'd do it like this, yeah, put something over them because it gets really cold at night. They'll just grow faster. If you could protect them right now from the night with a little polycarbonate sheet or some sort, or even leaves all around them, but the sheet really keeps warmth in there. They'll grow faster. And they'll just get bigger faster so that they're ready for the winter. I mean, right now you're just trying to get your plants ready for the winter. Okay, this is so fancy. I keep an old garbage bin in my garden, right next to my garden, and it's full of cloths, those frost cloths, and plastic. And so I'm just always ready to run out there and cover with whatever I need. I found that really handy, so I'm not, and then if I don't need the plastic anymore, I fold it up and put it in here, change it out for the cloth, change out the cloth for the plastic, and I just am keeping them all in here folded up, and they keep really well. Just make sure you have a good seal and the water doesn't get in there, but I've been able to use things year after year after year. I didn't put a lot of resources, it sounds like Sarah's going to send this to you, but okay, coop houses, those are the little structures we built with the, putting the rebar in and putting the polycarbonate, electrical conduit over the coop house. There's 2 videos. One made by me at NMSU. You can just Google NMSU coop houses YouTube and you'll get one of these videos. And then the other one I think was from I don't remember. Just look for the NMSU coop house video. It teaches you step by step how to build them. Colorado State has a great, it's called Garden Notes. It's from the Colorado Master Gardeners, and it's a whole 5-page publication on how to help plants through the winter. So we didn't talk about, and then these were the other ones that I showed you earlier. This is Stephanie Walker's publication on hoop houses, and this is the Oregon State on hoop houses. You can Google those things if you want. But we didn't talk a lot about trees. So let's spend the last few minutes here answering your questions, but also talking about trees.